Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. So the last update about Unfortunate Love was how Virendra and Neelam break their relationship with Rishi after finding out that he slept with Malishka. Then Rishi cried and he regret. Then Balwinder comes to Rano's house and claims to be Lakshmi's husband. Then the priest says that Balwinder should get married to Lakshmi. Only then would Neha get married to the rich guy that the priest has. So let's continue from there. The Oberoi family are sad after finding out that Rishi slept with Malishka. Rishi asked Grandma to make his dad understand not to break his relationship with him. Grandma asks, what do I make him understand? You are the lamp of the house and you burnt the respect of the house. She says, I will not raise my hand on you, but I want. Rishi stops her and asks her to slap him instead. Rishi holds Grandma's hand and slaps himself with her hand. He says, do whatever you want, but please ask Dad not to break his relationship with me. Neha tells Lakshmi that she might be feeling strange and says, my life is going to set if I marry this guy, so please marry Balwinder for my sake. She says, even you got the chance to marry Rishi, who is a rich guy, but now you are divorced, so marry Balwinder. Neha says to Lakshmi that you will not get any fresh guy to marry you after your divorce and says what is wrong in Balwinder. Balwinder will make you his queen, and she asks her to marry whoever she wants to. She says even I am your sister, and says you would have married Balwinder for Shalu and Bani because only if you marry Balwinder then I will be able to marry the rich guy. Rano asks Neha to keep her mouth closed and says nobody is going to force Lakshmi to marry Balwinder. Bani says nobody can force Lakshmi. She says my sister and brother-in-law would unite. Shalu says they would unite. Rano says Neelam and Karishma will not let this happen, and she asks Lakshmi to forget Rishi. Neha pretends and she asks Lakshmi not to take revenge from her and she should not ruin her life. She says only you can save my life if you marry Balwinder. Lakshmi says nobody's life will be ruined due to me. Neha smiles thinking that Lakshmi would definitely agree to marry Balwinder. Rishi pleaded in front of his parents for forgiveness. Neelam and Virendra looks on angrily. Karishma and Ayush help Rishi to get up. Karishma asks Rishi to handle himself and says everything will be fine. Karishma says, brother, this is enough, and says, what is all this? Karishma says to Virendra that Rishi is our son and he is saying that he has done a mistake and he is ready to bear the punishment. Then why are you angry? She says he is our Rishi. She asks if they will forget all his good deeds and says he is young and he loves Malishka. Maybe he got flowed in emotions and that was why they got intimate. Ayush says no, Rishi can never do this. He is accepting that he did it, but I know that he cannot do this. Karishma says Rishi has accepted that he did it because he has done this mistake, and she asks Ayush that are you out of your mind? Ayush says I don't know why Rishi is agreeing to this, but I cannot agree that Rishi got intimate with Malishka. Karishma says to Ayush that you always argue with me. Virendra says enough and says I will not forgive Rishi. Neelam says not even me. Karishma says what happened to you both? And she asks them to give a chance to Rishi to rectify his mistakes, and she tells Neelam that Rishi is her only son. Virendra says that a guy who cannot respect a woman cannot be our son. He says Malishka tried to commit suicide because of Rishi. Neelam says how will I wipe this stain and what will I tell Kiran? Karishma says sister-in-law. Neelam asks Karishma to understand a woman's pain, and Karishma says I understand because I am a mother too. Shalu asks Lakshmi that what about your rightful place? Lakshmi says we should end this work first. Shalu asks what did you tell Neha? Bani says we did not understand what you meant by saying that Neha's life will not be ruined. Shalu asks did you want to marry again? And she asks if Lakshmi understands what it means. Bani says to Lakshmi that Neha's life will not be ruined even if you don't marry Balwinder. Shalu says that guy is not the only one who can marry Neha and says Neha can get another guy to marry. Lakshmi reminds them that she is older than them and she is more wise. She asks them to let her take her own life's decision. Shalu says we are always with you, and she asks that did you decide to marry Balwinder? Karishma asks Grandma to say something and says you always say that elders should forgive. She says let's just not ruin things. Neelam says we will not throw Rishi out, but he will not be there for us, even after staying here. Karishma tried to stop Virendra, but Neelam and Virendra goes to their room. Karishma asks Rishi not to worry and says if your repentance is right, then your mom and dad will forgive you and they would hug you again. She thinks that Rishi and Malishka should get married and this is the only solution, that my brother and sister-in-law will forgive him. Rishi sits down and he cries inconsolably. Lakshmi asks Bani and Shalu to trust her. Shalu says we trust you, but we don't trust the circumstances. We want you to take the right decision. Bani says you wipe yourself for others, and that is why we are scared. Shalu says you will take the right decision being older than us. Lakshmi says I will take the decision after thinking, and she thinks that I am sorry, Shalu and Bani. I have to do something so that nobody will be sad due to me. Rano comes to Balwinder. Balwinder greets her and asks if she likes his wedding card with Lakshmi. Rano tears the wedding card and throws it at him. Balwinder asks Rano to stop her cheap doings. Rano asks Balwinder to stop dreaming and says Lakshmi will not marry you. Balwinder asks Rano to convince Lakshmi to marry him and says I will give you thousands of rupees. Rano asks did you have money and says you are a beggar. Balwinder asks Rano to play Shinai and he offers to pay 1,000 and then he offers her more. Rano says she doesn't believe him. Balwinder says he will not let Lakshmi stay in the house and says we should settle for 5,000 rupees. Rano says to Balwinder that you always promised but you never gave me money. She says that day you only gave me penny that I couldn't even buy lipstick with it. She says Rishi and Lakshmi can unite anytime and she asks Balwinder not to tell her later that she did not tell him. She says if you want to marry Lakshmi then you have to give me money and she asks Balwinder to hurry up. Balwinder says to Rano that she is greedy. Rano scolds him. Balwinder says I was telling my aunt. Rano asks Balwinder to bring money and vanish for now. Balwinder says you will get the money. Rano says if I get my Lakshmi that is money, then you will get your Lakshmi too. Balwinder says he will bring the money and Rano deals with Balwinder to get him married to Lakshmi. Ayush takes Rishi to his room. Rishi says everything is over and he asks Ayush to go. Ayush tries to stay with him, but Rishi asks Ayush to go and Ayush goes. Rishi rests on the bed thinking about Virendra and Neelam's words. He remembers Lakshmi and says, please return to me, Lakshmi, because I need you. He imagines going to Lakshmi's house and seeing Lakshmi sitting on the sofa. Rishi hugs Lakshmi and cries. A song plays in the background. Lakshmi gets teary eyes too. Rishi says, I have come to you because there was no place for me to go. He asks, where could I go? He says, you were telling me that I am your identity. Then why did you leave me? He says, you left me and everyone also left me. Dad, Mom and everyone has left me, and he cried. Rishi says to Lakshmi that everyone is upset and even you have left me. I have become lonely. He says I have understood that I am not your identity, but you are my identity. He says I am very lonely. I don't know what you have done with me. I see you everywhere I look. He says I cannot live without you. I am not at all strong, but you are very strong, but I am weak. Rishi says to Lakshmi that I miss you very much. Don't you miss me? Lakshmi says even I miss you with tears in her eyes. Rishi says you are lying. Lakshmi says she is not lying. Rishi says I need you and he hugs her. He asks Lakshmi to make everything fine like before. He asks Lakshmi to make everything fine because he cannot live without her. He asks if they can come back together again and it turns out to be Rishi's imagination and he gets up from the bed and cried. Rano comes to Lakshmi and asks that what is she thinking? Lakshmi says nothing. Rano says marriage is the start for a girl and says divorce is not the end of a girl's life. She says some girls get remarried and says this is right and says why should a girl suffer due to her husband? Rano asks Lakshmi to sit straight and she pretends to pacify her. She says I am like your mother and Neha's mother also. She says I am worried for you and I want you to marry at the right time. She says the priest is not wrong either and says if a divorcee daughter is at home, then it is difficult to marry off the other daughters. Neelam tells Virendra that she has lost from her own upbringing and from her own son. Virendra says, I never thought that Rishi would do this. Neelam says Rishi has done this, but he refused to marry Malishka, and Neelam blamed Lakshmi for Rishi's decision of not marrying Malishka. Virendra asks Neelam not to do a mistake by blaming Lakshmi because it is Rishi's mistake. He says we are already stressed, so don't add to the stress. Kiran comes there and Neelam and Virendra looks on. Rano tells Lakshmi that a good alliance came for Neha, but you are older than Neha, and she asks Lakshmi to think about her daughter. Rano says to Lakshmi that I am not forcing you to remarry and says I can take care of you all my life, but I cannot give you the life that you will get from your home, from your husband and from your kids. She pretends and says today, problem comes into Neha's marriage and tomorrow, Shalu and Bani's marriage would have problem too because you refuse to remarry. Rano says to Lakshmi that she is not forcing her and she asks her to take a right decision, but she asks her not to be too late with her decision. She says Balwinder is ready to marry you even today and Balwinder loves you a lot, and Lakshmi looks on in shock. Kiran tells Neelam that it is not a mistake, so their friendship will not be affected, and that is why she is here. Virendra and Neelam thank and apologize to Kiran for what Rishi did. Kiran says it is not just Rishi's mistake, but Malishka's mistake too, and she asks them not to apologize and says she would go and see Rishi. Rishi is in his room. Kiran knocks on the door and comes inside, and Rishi gets up from the bed and he was scared. Kiran asks Rishi to look at her. She says a child can do any mistake, but a mother forgives him always when the child does penance for their mistakes. Rishi hugs Kiran and says sorry. He says, I did not know how this happened, and I hurt you all. Kiran says it is okay, and she asks Rishi to sit, and they both sit. Kiran says to Rishi that everything will be fine, and he will make it fine, and she asks Rishi to promise her that he will make everything fine. Rishi says he will promise if everything will be fine. Kiran says whatever happened was love, but it was not legitimate, and she asks Rishi to seal it with a marriage, and she asks Rishi to get married to Malishka, and Rishi is shocked. Kiran says to Rishi that both our families are involved, and if you refuse to marry Malishka, then everything will be finished, and if you agree, then everything will be alright. Else, you cannot be forgiven for whatever you have done with Malishka. Kiran asks Rishi to marry Malishka to save himself from the guilt, because that is the only way. Grandma tells Devika that first, Lakshmi went away from the house, and now Rishi has done a mistake. Devika says, how can Malishka let this happen? Grandma says, why did Malishka not stop Rishi? Devika says maybe Karishma is right, that Rishi and Malishka did it because of love. Grandma says one should be modern, but they should not forget their limitations. Grandma says to Devika that Lakshmi became modern even though she was from the village, but she still has the same good values. She says, how can Rishi do this? Ayush comes there and says Rishi haven't done anything. Devika says Rishi himself said that he did it. Ayush asks Devika to look into Rishi's eyes and says Rishi has values in his eyes and he cannot do something like this. Ayush says to Grandma and Devika that Rishi is full of values and he will never cross his limit with any girl, and he asks her to understand. He says Rishi was drunk when he accepted that he did it, and even Rishi has no idea what has happened and when. He says I can prove that Rishi did not get intimate with Malishka, and he asks Grandma and Devika to help him. Grandma says to Ayush that I am with you to prove Rishi's innocence, and Devika also says I will do anything for Rishi, so I am also with you. Ayush says I am going to prove Lakshmi wrong. Grandma says no, don't say that you will prove Lakshmi wrong. Just say that you are going to clear Lakshmi's misunderstanding, and Ayush says that is what he meant. Kiran tells Rishi that she wants him to marry Malishka and says she is not forcing him and she is not punishing him also, but she just wants him to do the right thing, and she asks him to decide and says it is okay if he refuses, but she wants reasons for his refusal, and he will tell her what Malishka should do if he refuses to marry her, and says you will be my son always, and she goes away from there, and Rishi looks on confused. Okay, so Rishi that on a normal day is always confused. He doesn't know what he wants. Now they are putting too much burden on him. Now he will be more confused because... Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to check the comment section for the link to the next episode. And don't forget to give this video a like and share it to anyone you feel will want to watch it. And I will see you all again in my next video. Thank you for always watching my videos. I'm seeing you guys' effort and, I'm so grateful. Thank you guys. Bye guys.